Hey, what's up everybody? This is Joshua Casper here with Plugin Boutique, and today I'm going to show you how to use halftime to get this type of effect. All right, so hopefully you heard what was happening there. This section and this section were slowed down by the halftime device. And if I just go ahead and press A on my keyboard, Ableton Live will show me the automation that made that possible. And we're going to get into that in a second, but I figure the first thing to do is just kind of talk briefly about what halftime is. And the quickest way to see what's going on with this is go to the Show Help screen, which shows you all the information you need to know right out of the gate. It's a very simple plugin, but as you heard, hopefully it's very powerful. So we got the loop section here at the top, and this says the shorter lengths preserve the original tempo like a pitch shifter, medium lengths chop and rearrange the groove, and long lengths slow the entire mix like vinyl tape or a sampler. And you automate this to get some interesting and unique results. And I did that inside of this example, so we're going to get into that in a second. Now, there are also fade in and fade outs. This is just to create a smooth transition from the non-affected version to the affected version. There's a big power button, and there are 3 different modes. So 1.5 is for perfect fifth harmonies and triplet grooves. So perfect fifth harmonies would be when you're mixing between the affected signal and the dry signal, and you go about 50%, so you'll hear both. If you have it at 1.5 times speed, it's going to give a 1/5 down and harmonize with the actual original sound. 2 times is for the classic halftime effect. So if you have a quarter note, it will be stretched into a half note, things of that nature. 4 times is super slow. So if you have a quarter note, it will get stretched out to a full bar. One other thing is that this works with MIDI and with audio. So I'm using it on a MIDI track, but I don't want you to think that it can only be used on a MIDI track. It is an audio effect, so it's really processing the audio that's coming from the synth and the MIDI clip itself. And then there's also a smooth function here, and you set it at the lower side to preserve transients, like for drums and percussion, and you set it higher for sustain modes and to avoid clicking and popping and things like that. And we already touched on the mix knob, and this is very straightforward. It's a dry wet mix knob. And then there's also a very handy solo band, and this will allow you to pinpoint the frequencies of the audio that you want to be affected. So you don't need to affect the entire spectrum. You can choose a band, and you have 2 sliders on the left and the right, and you can move them up and down as you want. If I click here, we'll go back into it, and you can see this is the band right here, and the rest of the parameters is very straightforward. So let me show you what I did to this lead. Again, if I press A, and we'll see the automation here, I'm going to go ahead and solo it too. The sound is regular, the power button is off, and you'll see here I've got the power on automation, and it comes on a half a bar before I want the effect to take full effect. And that's because I have a half a bar fade in time. So what that does, if I go ahead and turn this off for a second, let's go ahead and listen. So it's fairly obvious that it's fading in there, but if I add in the split low, which is again the ability to hone in and kind of solo the frequency band you want affected, if I undo these, you'll actually, if we listen now, you'll be able to hear that's a lot smoother using this as sort of a fade in effect as well, on top of the fade in from the halftime device. So that's with. So it's a little cleaner, I think. And then when we go into here, we're on looped at half bar and we're on the speed 1.5. And again, we're not getting the harmony right there. We're just getting a choppier style because I'm not mixing it in between the original and the affected version. I've just got it straight up 100% wet here. And that pretty much continues on for 2 bars, and I switch up the drum pattern to add a little bit of flavor behind it. So that's pretty cool. And then what I did was slowed it down even further right here. We'll see that we're up to 2 bars on the loop and we're at ×2. So it's much more slow and there's a longer period of time that's being looped with the effect. So let's go ahead and listen to that. And then what I did for the rest was just went ahead and changed the loop length here. And I also turned off the device about a half bar before the end of the loop here, or this bar section, this 4-bar section. And that's because, again, I'm using the fade out here and it fades out over that section and brings in the original sound, and it just kind of makes a nice transition back into the lead. So if we listen to that. So hopefully you can tell that using this in creative ways, using the automation lines, is a great way to get variety to what otherwise might be considered kind of a monotonous loop. I mean, we're looking at almost a full minute of more or less the same MIDI clip over and over again, and just using halftime with a couple of different automation lines, and we've got what sounds like a completely different lead patch. And as I said before, this works with the MIDI and it also works on your audio samples. The way I got to this was just to get in on the original loop here and just play with the effects to see what could happen. So that's essentially what I did to find where I wanted the effect to go during the track itself. And I just did that until I found something that sounded really good. And then I just automated the transition from one spot to another. As you can see here, it's just a very abrupt change. But here, using the fade in conjunction with automating the frequency band filter right here, really sounds nice. I mean, if we're just listening to it soloed, it's a little bit obvious, I think. If I come in and just... Together with the rest of the track, you can't really notice it, but it is a lot smoother than not using this automation line with the frequency band filter right here. So now I just wanted to share with you how to use halftime inside of a real-world track to get some really interesting and cool results that you might not otherwise get if you didn't have the halftime device. Anyway, I suggest you go ahead and check it out. Links to it are in the description of this video. I hope you learned something. We'll see you next time.